They looked at her scars like they were trophies they didn't deserve. The break room tumbled. The place went quiet as soon as Sarah Mitchell walked inside. 42 battle-worn. Her burn scars on her cheek looked like ghosts, trails from another existence. She wasn't not meant to be here, not at the top school of training, not with males half her age, not dining alone every day like unaimless, badge-wearing figure. Captain Derek Walshett back in his chair and spoke smoothly with laughter. "Sarah, it's time for the fire drill again." People started to laugh. She didn't T-blink, didn't bite, didn't have to. They didn't know what they didn't know. No one knew why command sent her back after all these years, and why she was happy when they laughed. Appearance like someone got too close to the fire, Walsh whispered loudly enough for his audience, yet pitched to get across the room. He ran his finger along his sewn, flawless cheek, copying Thethy trail of her scars while his friends laud. Sarah's hand shook a little bit around her sandwich, but checked looking at her plate. The laughter got louder, feasting on her quiet like fire on dry wood. One by one. She put down her food and picked up her deliberately, took care of everything, and walked out of the room with careful steps. Not a word came out of her mouth, yet something about the way she carried herself, deep but hard to put into words, created the ounce as teacher's laughter stopped in his throat. The voice of the storyteller conveys a heavy feeling of knowing. As the scene fades, but sometimes the quietest people among us bring the loudest thunder. What would you do if your deepest sacrifices become a target of cruel teasing? Let go of leave a comment below. We read them all. Sarah Mitchell's journey didn't start their clean break room, but on the windy expanses of rural Montana, where poverty impacted character and adversity tamed up their minds. When she was 18, she exchanged the infinite horizons of her childhood for the structured promise of military service. Trying to get away from a future written down in food stamps and notices of foreclosure, the Army offered it gave more than just a paycheck. Goal over the course of 15 years of service. She'd moved up the ranks that look had made to turn her down, facing down discrimination with the same quiet intensity she gave to each endeavor. Widow. 27 was her call sign, although it hadn't not picked for drama, but acquired through exactness. 27 verified high-value targets removed during the course of a career that covered a lot of ground and a lot of wars Americans would never know about. The scars emerged later in the Afghan mountains during what should have been her last deployment. An IED, or improvised explosive device. Device had broken through her convoy on AA Road with a lot of dust outside Kandahar in 2019. The blast killed everyone in her unit right away. Soul disappeared in a 6A thunderclap of rage and shrapnel. Sarah Haloni survived, rescued from the fire debris with half of her face melted, and her heart holding a weight that no metal could find a balance. Marcus was one of the dead. Chen, her fiancé and co-worker. His ring she still wore on a chain underneath her plain teacher's polo shirt. The assessment from the government labeled it it's a miracle she lived. Sarah termed it a curse, especially over the long nights when she could still hear Marcus calling her name through the fire. Retirement hadn't been a choice that much as a giving up. The woman who used Toplin strikes in 3 different time zones taught basic marksmanship to people, new recruits at a training facility in the Esplis. She'd chosen on purpose hiding her medals in a storage unit and cleaning out her social keep, your media presence tidy. Her home showed this new life, which was scant, useful, with nothing in it. That's age she was the legend she'd been. A pickup truck from 10 years ago took her there which morning at work, where she showed correct way to stand and Berthito kids who had never been in a genuine fight. She made her lessons simple, nearly boring, never hinting at the Miss Clemery that could put bullets through a deem at 500 yards. But the sole sign of either past was on her right side. 26. A little tattoo on her wrist in plain Roman numbers. She had gotten it in Germany after she turned 20 for the 20th time kill. Back when she still thought the statistics were more important than the faces. Now it was a reminder and a warning. None of her coworkers recognized how important it was. Her philosophy had become clear through loss. Real strength doesn't need an audience. She lived it every day, keeping up great shooting, scores during quarterly reviews, wily and purpose downplaying her skills, when other teachers bragged about she didn't say anything about their deployments. When they looked at scars and told stories, she said she was sorry. Sarah Mitchell, who had formerly been the most dangerous woman and had opted to do special operations, vanish, leaving only a peaceful teacher who ate alone and then drove Hamedo an empty flat with 6 ghosts waited. By the second week, the teasing had come a habit. Captain Walsh had changed Sarah's presence into his personal fun, making new several kinds of cruelty with Theon Artist's dedication. Scarface turned into the most tame of the nicknames. Crunchy and Hallface came next, each one given with casual malice of someone who had never felt actual pain. His disciples, a rotating group of junior teachers wanting to move up in society, made each joke funnier with their laughing. During staff meetings, Walsh Escalation qualifications with fake worry. "Are we sure she's mentally fit to handle weapons?" he'd ask. "Tapping to handle weapons," he'd ask, hitting his own temple that wasn't identified. Trauma can leave damage that lasts after all. The implication was heavy. No matter what the accident had left scars on her face, it also left scars on her thoughts. A system that should have kept Sarah safe instead protected the people who were hurting her. Walsh's father, a former colonel who worked at the Pentagon Connections, cast a long shadow over the management of the academy. Gripes disappeared into bureaucratic black holes while money was easy to get. Sarah Smodger Peterson, the direct supervisor, took her aside after she filed her second report of harassment. "Mitchell, he said it, but he didn't quite look her in. You need to keep your head down. This is military culture. You need to have tough skin," of the job description. The HRTHE department was just as worthless, saying her worries were just her nature fights, reminding her that teachers need to keep the unit together. Unity. The message was plain: endure your go. Little things started to give away the truth that Sarah tried so hard to keep from coming out. Sergeant Major James Parker is the oldest teacher at the academy, an AA Vietnam veteran with his own collection of scars. Saw how she moved through doors, always looking corners, never turning her back on space that is open. Her shooting lesson stayed perfectly simple, yet Parker caught the tiny changes she medianed between shots. The type of changes that stemmed from muscle memory gained in ed on training ranges, but in real life, tactical language during lecture smite slipped through her delicate hands, kept up the appearance of being a civilian. She'd hitting a target instead of aiming or keek the fields of fire before catching herself and making things easier. The students started to feel that something was odd about Theacom teacher with a scarred face, a skill that went beyond her. Modest decision. The point of no return. Cam hidden as another joke. Walsh's band had gotten their hands on firecrackers, small kind of things teens may throw on 4th of July. They waited until Sarah walked by where they were Nerth Armory, then lighted them and threw them behind her. The loud shatter of little she dove for cover when there were blasts. Her body was behind a concrete wall flowing with the smooth grace of long practice. For 3 seconds, she wasn't in Georgia but now in Kandahar. The IEDs, the roar replaced the pop of the firecracker when reality came back. She saw herself huddled in a textbook defense stance, hands grasping for a weapon that wasn't there, while Walsh's gang laughed so hard they couldn't breathe. That night, she was alone in her flat. Sarah looked at the picture she had in her nightstand's drawer. 6 the faces smiled back at her. Team Alpha taken 2 days before the blast. Marcus stood next to her with his arm around her shoulders, not knowing he would be gone in less than 48 hours. Rodriguez, Thompson, Kowalski, and Barnes made up the rest of the group, smiling because they thought they were invincible soldiers who had been through 100 close calls. She drew lines on their faces with one acard finger. Thinking about their third way Barnes talked, their jokes always hummed off key during long missions to get information. The empty their absence rang through the flat. She took out a cardboard box and started putting together her little things. It could have been his time to entirely withdraw and locate some town where no one would glance twice. A woman with scars who stayed to herself? The morning brought something unexpected. General's evolution in the form of Patricia Harrison's unexpected check, dash up at 58. Harrison acted like she was ring of someone who had worked hard for every star on her uniform. because she fought not political maneuvering, but leadership. Her gray eyes looked across the people who had gathered, teachers who looked at them with a cunning glance, a predator that finds food in danger. When those eyes saw Sarah standing at attention in the back row, pleased Dad stayed. Something changed in Harrison's look. Recognition dawning like the sun rising over a battlefield. During the regular inspection, Harrison's attention kept going back to the instructor with scars, held herself immobile. She spoke a load of a strict discipline, separate of the inspection that shows how West each teacher to demonstrate off the way they teach. Sarah went forward when it was her time, with the intention off go over her basic run-through routine for shooting. But as she dealt with weapon, making sure it worked with 20 years of muscle, made it easy to practice. Emery's let her down. She changed her mind. Weight spread out for quick movement accuracy when moving instead of standing still. When she shot, the grouping was too tight to be possible. Not the skilled grouping of a basic teacher, but an exactness of a surgeon who had made such shots while lives were on the line. Balance. Harrison got closer throughout ceasefire. Sarah let go of the general's eyes were fixed on the weapon. Tiny tattoo on her wrist that you can see. 27 in Roman numbers. Text v. Teacher Mitchell, Harrison remarked in a low voice. A word, please. Keep it to yourselves. They walked away. Walsh watched from the group with scarcely hidden annoyance at the paying attention to his favorite goal. Harrison's voice was out of earshot. The professional mask fell off and was replaced by anything like, "Ah, Widow 27, she took a breath. I've been searching for you for 2 years." Sarah's back got tense, but she didn't say anything. Harrison went on, her voice full of restrained emotion, feeling. The Pentagon said you wear it in combat after the Kandahar event. We have been attempting to give Youth Medal of Honor after they died. The intelligence from your operations saved 3 cities from attacks that were planned. Conservative estimates say that the life saved more than 200 Americans. Sirash's answer comes out just above a whisper. I'm just a basic gun general instructor. You need me? Mistaken for someone else. But Harrison wasn't scared off. She had read every after-action report, remembered the operating history of the most deadly female operator in the Special Force past. The marks on your face, Harrison said. Softly, they didn't show up. They didn't get hurt in an accident, did they? You left back into the fire to get those out-injured civilians when the IED went off. You still look good, even with half of your face burned. Gave the medevac cover fire. You saved the lives of 3 youngsters. Though the time of reckoning came with what? Harrison said next. I want you to show these teachers what genuine marksmanship looks like. The general shouted in a loud enough voice for everyone to hear. Walsh got up right away forward, his voice oozing with fake General Harrison. With all due respect, Instructor Mitchell is just a basic gun instructor. 8. Maybe one of 4 advanced combat teachers would be more fitting for Harrison's look, have frozen hellfire. Captain, you're about to learn something? Walsh, stand down. She turned back to Sarah. Her voice was softer, but no less commanding. I know you want to keep concealed, but shown Rodriguez and your teammates Thompson way. Kowalski, Barnes, and they did. Thinking their sacrifice mean anything, honor them. Yes. Show these folks well, you truly are. Sarah stood exactly still for 10 heartbeats, each second stretching like forever, and the other teachers were around them, moved hesitantly, feeling the weight of something important. Finally, Sarah nodded once. A small movement that way showed both acceptance and resolution. She walked back to the range with a separate gait, the prowling stride of a predator that is no longer acquired to hide what it was. As she picked a gun off the rack, the hunched person's whole attitude changed. Straightened shoulders. The Saretha air disappeared, leaving behind pure deadly skill condensed into human. What came next would be spoken about in the military for years. Sarah started with the usual goals at normal ranges. Her shots were so flawless finally, they made a single ragged hole. After that, she went to places that made Walsh's followers trade looks of uncertainty. 300 yards, 400 yards, 500 yards. At the shot stayed at each distance exceedingly exact. directed not just at the center mass, but at certain places that waltz swiftly stop a threat, just shifted to monitoring and moving targets, getting rid of each one with an economy of motion that talked about a lot of real-world engagements. The rifle looked like an extension of her will, responding to changes so small that most people wouldn't notice, couldn't even see them. For the Harrison had the range master for the last time, made up a situation that wasn't in any training manual. There are several targets at different distances, some only partially hidden, and some moving at different. It was the kind of complicated comment that would be hard for a full team of firefighters. Sarah did it all by herself, in less than 90 seconds. Every goal stopped with one shot. As the shed hit the ground with the last brass casing, turned the weapon off and faced her audience. When she got to the safe, the weapon was locked, and the quiet waswole. With only the sound of the distonte, sound of wind blowing over Georgia pines, there was no color left in Walsh's face, his mouth opening and shutting like a fish that has landed. General Harrison stood up and spoke to Thepit together teachers, with a voice that took on the responsibility of command. Please let me correctly interest Sarah Mitchell, who runs the business call sign Widow 27.27. Verified high-value targets were removed over a period of 15 years of Tier 1 special operations. Her 3 people were stopped from doing intelligence job attacks on American cities that were planned. The lowest estimate is 1,200 American lives saved. But the number is probably a lot greater. She stopped for a moment to let the words sink in. She earned the scars you've been making fun of. Them taking 3 Afghan kids out of a flaming car while being shot at by the enemy after an IED killed all of her team. She burns on more than 30% of her body, and still gave her cover fire for the medical evacuation that saved the lives of those kids. Like a revelation, it hung in the air. Presence in person. Several teachers who had taken part in Walsh's ridiculous sick. The captain, he looked like he had shrunk, privileged, breaking down beneath the weight of his terrible mistake. Harrison went on, her tone changing from giving information to denouncing. This woman has given up more for her more than most of you can imagine. She has earned the right to be treated, did not. Being treated with dignity and respect. O'Hara's teens by people who haven't ever heard a gunshot in anger, or staring at Walsh with laser strength. Captain, I'm going to have a talking to your dad about your behavior. I think your time as the instructor here is about to leave. But Sarah's answer would be a perseverian. Instead of enjoying finding proof or looking for more, Sarah only nodded. In response to punishment, General Harrison and started to walk towards the exit. Walsh, who was in a panic, his usual hubris made him trip forward with a flood of sorries. Teachrum, very sorry. Mitchell, Sarah. I had no wish I had known. Sarah halted, but didn't look back. When she spoke, there was no anger in her voice, just tiredness. Actions speak louder than words, Captain. They always have. She went on, walked away, leaving Walsh all alone. In the middle of the range, his cautious built world in ruins all around him. Harrison caught up with Sarah, in the parking lot, where the light was shining through broad shadows on the asphalt. I'm ready to provide you the job of Advanced Combat Training Director. The general said this without any introduction. Full restoration of the pension, bouquet for the years since you retired from the military, and the ceremony for the Medal of Honor that you yearned. Sarah leaned on her wrecked pickup truck, finally showing how tired she was on her scare characteristics. With all due respect, General, I'm not ready to be a symbol. I came here to teach kids the essentials who might need them. That's all I want to say about those skills. Want? Harrison looked at her for a long time. For a while, then grinned, as if she understood. What if we meet halfway? You keep on teaching basics, but I send you the students who deserve to learn from the finest. No ceremony, no publicity, just you doing what you do best. Making soldiers white live through their first real conflict. Sarah thought about the proposition and looked remote as she thought over the offer against her need to stay anonymous. At last, she nodded. Send me the ones who are general. I'm here for the right reasons, not fame seekers or the Policians climbers. Send me the ones wano, that getting home alive is the only thing that matters is winning. Harrison held out her hand and Sarah shook it strongly. You'll get them, the general said they would. And Walsh, Sarah's face didn't alter, already been punished himself more than any punishment from the government cold, knowing what it was. Like to live with it what he's done. It's a burden he'll have to bear. For all time. Harrison's regard for the woman with scars got even worse. Even after everything, she chose to be wise. Over revenge. In less than 48 hours, the academy went through a quiet change. Walsh's move to the desk job at a supply warehouse happened so quickly that most teachers got their Monday morning to locate his office already cleaned out. No official there was an announcement, but everyone get it. The culture of being casual of the cruelty he had grown wilted without its leader. Other teachers thought, looking at their own actions, wondering what sacrifices might be hidden behind at the peaceful fronts of their Kodash workers. Sarah went back to her basic guns classes, but now she lectured 2 rooms full of quiet attention. Student Chu had thought she was merely another range teacher was now hanging one word, looking for the truth buried in her easy lessons. The real changes showed up in tiny ways. Sarah started adding little tactical ideas into her core curriculum. Nothing that would give away her pasto people who aren't paying attention, but enough to offer her students really serve a ved pros. When a young woman joins the army had trouble. With the weight of her gun, Sarah changed her position with care. Hands whispering, leverage over strength always. She began to share pieces of hard, to get knowledge hidden as simple safety tips. Always know your exits became a slogan for her classroom, but not many knew she meant it for more than just fire drills. After that, students started looking for her hours. Drawn by something that can't be put into words in her lessons, she never turned away anyone who had real questions, who came with real inquiries. 3 Sarah stood up weeks after the news came out, in front of a group of teachers and advanced students for her first official speaking engagement since the event. She had said no to Harrison's plea to the academy, but the general had been convincing. They need to hear from Harrison had said, you, not Widow 27, just Sarah Mitchell. The teacher Sarah is now facing the audience that has gathered spoke without notes, her face covered in scars tranquil in the light of the afternoon. We're here to make warriors, not crush spirits, she started, and her voice was clear, from one side of the room to the other. Everyone who walks she's chosen to serve through these portals, to put themselves in the way of danger in Anthos, they look out for. That choice is worth respect, no matter what rank, background, or looks. She stopped for a moment, as if take a moment to get herself together, before going on. I lost me group in Afghanistan. 6 of the Goni, in the best troops I've ever known a moment. They died thinking that their sacrifice would mean something. That the people they protected would keep going. Their goal. When we make fun of each other, when we break things down instead of building them up, we don't honor their memories. And every soldier who has made that last give up, for the first time, shall let her feelings affect what she said. Strength isn't about being in charge, or real power is raising up others, not humiliating them. Others up, making sure the man next to you makes it home. The rest is just noise, she told one narrative, simply own, about Marcus Chin, and how he always made sure to check everyone else's first gear before his own. He kept people alive with that habit, she remarked plainly. Maybe the habits you make here will do the same. General Harrison saw Sarah, after the speech, carrying a tiny box made of wood. I know you said no, Harrison started with ceremonies, but this isn't for everyone, it's only for you. There was a combination bar inside the package, representing her whole unit, their names carved into a plain silver plate. Sarah's fingers shook as she picked up it. The weight was really small compared to what it means. They put your name on it, Harrison murmured gently. 2. The 70 few are all listed together like this hold B. Sarah held the box tightly to her chest, unable to say anything. That night, she put in her Spartan flat commendation in a basic frame, not for show, but as a private memorial. A picture of the Alpha team sat next to it, 7 smiles that will never change. Over the Sarah's power grew in the months that followed, spread through the academy like waves in calm water. Her students always got the highest scores on practical lessons, showing a tactical knowledge that went beyond their basic training. Other teachers started doozing her approaches and putting more emphasis on awareness of what's going on and respect for everyone at a member, and the silent real confidence that came from skill instead of bravado. The director of the academy was not sure at first off. The reforms saw dropout rates dropping quickly, while performance metrics went up. Told Sarah she could get a promotion. 3 times. 3 times she politely said no. Happy with her job as AA basic teacher, who just occurred. 2 really good students. Harrison did one last try to get Sarah to take a job in the Pentagon. Shaw made a picture of power and effect. Sarah may change the military training doctrine. Make sure the future of the soldiers got the finest possibly getting ready. At book deals and speaking tours, chance to tell her tale to the world. Sarah listened carefully and then grinned with a gentle finality. My fight is that's it, General. My service goes on here, just one pupil at a time. People who are real heroism need headlines. They need to be aware that someone who has been there before going cared enough to get them red-eyed the right way. Harrison agreed to the refusal with grace, knowing that Sarah Mitchell had found her calm and bung anonymous and finding meaning in simplicity. The season changed and the air became crisp. To Georgia as Sarah kept quiet work. Every morning she came to Thuringe before morning, taking advantage of the quiet toe, keep her own abilities up in private. These sessions weren't about keeping up. Famous accuracy of Widow 27. Beaut about paying respect to the muscle memory that keeping her alive for 15 years over operations. When the light came up, students would start to show up, and she would change back into the simple, unassuming in stroke, who just so happened to have an strange ability to find and fix hooding problems with as few words as possible, and the most effect. One morning in particular, brought in a young woman named Donna Reeves, who was 19 years old, with the awkwardness of someone who is still getting bigger as they grow up. She had trouble with the rifle's weight. Her shots hit all over the target in a pattern that said effort without understanding. Sarah watched as they tried several times before getting close. You're fighting the weapon, she said quietly. It's not our enemy. Think of it as an extension of what you want. She changed an ostens with careful accuracy, moving her hands and shoulders about. Keep in mind that strength isn't about being mitts, not about being seen. It's about being ready. The shot hit the center mass. Anna's face lighted up with shock and pride, and Sarah smiled back at him a little as the months went by. Stories started going around in military circles concerning this card teacher. At George Academy, that might transform new recruits into good shooters who seemed to be able to tackle without effort. Other police officers' training centers asked for transfers for their students who were having trouble. Sari took them all in with the same calmness Profician, never admitting Thea developing reputation that came before her. She made friends with a lot of former students, kept in touch and censured emails from deployments all across the world. I heard your voice in my thoughts during that fight with guns, one person wrote. Leverage to strong. Got home because UFC preserved every correspondence in a folder labeled simply Purpose. Folder with the simple name Purpose. Though the change at the academy was complete, by the end of the year of Harrison's lookover, what had once had a culture of casual cruelty and empty bravado had grown into something more real. Teacher snot by making fun of each other. Dumb. But by throw, how well their students do. The discourse in the mess hall changed from stories about battle to ways to instruct. Eventually, most experienced teachers discovered watching Sarah's classes for themselves, writing down how she does things. He never acknowledged this attention and kept same steady presence that had supported her through both battle and its aftermath. Her scars, which used to be a source of ridicule, has turned into a quiet reminder that just being alive was an accomplishment austere of respect. On calm nights, Sarah might sometimes find herself in talking to Sergeant Major Parker, the Vietnam veteran who was the first saw the warrior inside her simple outside. They would sit outside the range as the sun sank and painted the ski in tones of amber and rose, sharing the quiet comfort of those who'd seen too much to need to talk all the time. You've changed this place, Parker seen. One night, Sarah shook hair a little bit. Places don't change. I just reminded them why people do. Parker smiled at that, seeing that someone is deflecting Chan. Would be uncomfortable with praise. He remarked softly that he was proud to have learned names of her lost team through Saras. Hand was being watched by a patient. Inadvertently stroked the chain at Marcus's ring was on her throat. She promised that all will be. The scene became clear one afternoon when the light in Georgia shone through Therine's windows, which made lengthy shadows across the firing line. Sarah worked with Anna Reeves, who had moved up from struggling recruit to one of the most promising students at the academy. The young woman was standing strong now. Her shoots were controlled by her breath, Godway's categorized, but more than that, she had learnt a lot of technical skills, something more from her teacher, the calm certainty that flowed from skill without being arrogant. As Anna finished her degree, Sarah, who got perfect scores in a row, saw other students looking not merely learning from thetomenstration, but also from the patient, considerate way that knowledge was moved. Teacher Mitchell, Anna murmured as she put her gun away. I'm going into action next month. First battle, Sarah looked her students in the eye as she gave them their task, seeing the mix of excitement and fear that every soldier had before their first major test. Trust your Sarah said, training, help your team, come home. Everything else is secondary, Anna said, and she understood that they were more than simply words, got advice from someone who thought them. As the younger woman walked, Sarah let her go back to her apart in a moment of happiness for herself. One more ready for battle. One more chance for a squad to go home safely. The camera of memory draws away from this scene, showing the bigger picture. There are a lot of students practicing under Thewith. The help of teachers who had learned that strength could be silent. That people acquired respect by being good at what they did, instead of volume. Sarah Mitchell stands with them, no longer concealing but not looking for attention either. The afternoon sun shines on the damaged face. When she goes to aid someone else who is having trouble, pupil, patient hands changing their stanceed hold. The numbers in Roman letters on her U can see her wrist as she shows correct trigger control. 27 tasks broken down into easy movements that might save a life one day. This is her not for recognition or revenge, but for triumph, yet in the peaceful growth of competence. The steady growth of fighters who know what real strength doesn't need an audience. Voiceover sends with carefully chosen sentences that haveth weight of the truth. Honor doesn't need to be recognized. Strength doesn't take an audience. Sometimes the best, the wins that no one sees, are the best. Not in medals or awards, Butin lives ready, spirits high, and changed traditions. And at times, occasionally, the quietest among us bring the loudest thunder. Not in thithy sounds they create, but in the resonates they leaving behind. Sarah Mitchell, 27, a widow, teacher of the basics and guardian of secrets, is proof that heroes don't always, the ones that look for the light. On many occasions, it is them who shed light, the way for other people. One lesson for Patient Zone. At a time, the screen goes black, with simple text for the quiet watchers in our midst. Where are you? Where are you watching from? And what does real honor mean? That you value